Something else there were so many things that felt so true and important to me while reading your book, and one of them, which is quite surprising how aligned our experiences have been on this particular thing.
Yeah.
So it was the will she, won't she discussion that went on through the whole thing about motherhood and parenting and whether you were going to go that direction. Now I'm 44, I'm child-free, and I've never experienced that magnetic hormonal pull towards motherhood. As you said, you haven't. But again, like you, in my 30s, I think I'm 36, I decided to go and get my eggs frozen just in case. I couldn't imagine ever wanting a child, but I also couldn't write it off.
Yeah.
But I knew it was going to be, I knew it wasn't a done deal, because the women in my family go through menopause really early. My mum's period stopped, I think, around 40.
Oh, wow.
So, and her mother was similar. So, there was every chance it wasn't going to work out. And indeed, as expected, that's what happened. I found myself looking across the table at the very sympathetic face of a fertility doctor who told me that I could have a try if I wanted to, but they really thought the chances were extremely slim of us getting enough eggs to have any success.
Yeah.
And I had, in anticipation of that particular moment, I had half expected the floodgates to open and this deluge of repressed emotion to come flowing out and hit me and show me how all of this child-free nonsense had just been bravado. And really I was just like every other woman.
Yes.
And I needed to be a mother, right? That none of that happened. There was nothing. The most I felt in that moment, I actually said, huh. Right? And the most I felt in that moment was curiosity at why I had no reaction. But quickly I knew, my gut instinct was like, because you don't care. You don't care about not having any eggs because you don't want to use them. It's as simple as that. And since then, and I still do it, if I'm honest, every now and then, find myself wandering into the territory of conditioned thoughts, like, what does it mean about me? What does it say about me? Does it mean that I'm immature, selfish, too boyish, too career-driven? Am I just not capable? Is that not what I want? Is that why I don't want a child? So I wanted to hear this about this experience from you, especially as someone who has clearly got such a great relationship with your mother. I do have a great relationship with my mother too, by the way. I'm not trying to suggest I don't. So it's not like we've been traumatized and therefore have that as a reason. Now, how do you reconcile the conflict between your natural knowing that you don't want a child and the societal expectation for you to go in the opposite direction?
It took time. So our experiences are so similar that I, in my 30s, had no desire to have children. Friends were starting to have children, and I remember meeting an older woman in a hairdresser's actually, and she said, you'll wake up at 40 and it'll be like a bomb has gone off. You will just be obsessed with the desire to have children. And I really believed her, I did, and I kept waiting, for this bomb to start ticking, and got to 40, no bomb. And again, I was like, am I in denial? Is it just because I haven't met someone? And all this questioning about, why wasn't this bomb here? And so similarly to you, I went to get my fertility tested because I was going around and around in circles of like, why don't I want this thing again that most people, particularly women, are supposed to want? And in reality, that most of my friends were having children and just, of course it's challenging, but they loved being mothers. And there was this kind of concern that I would miss out on something that would really make me so happy. And I had that concern. I kept thinking I'd wake up at 50 and realise I'd missed the point of life if I didn't try and get with the programme. And so I was talking about all this. And then at some point it was a therapist who said, well, you should just get your fertility tested to find, because I kept saying, well, maybe, it's too late anyway for me to have this. She said, well, go and find out. And very similar to you, I did go and have my fertility tested and very much expected to be told, you're too old, you've drunk too much, you've got no fertility. And I was waiting for this, avalanche of regret and grief to come, because again, I thought I had just been fooling myself on some level. And the opposite thing happened. I went into this, fancy doctor's office, the big oak desk, and him sitting behind it. And he told me that I was unusually fertile for someone my age. And of course, there were no guarantees, but if I wanted to have children, there's no reason to think I couldn't. and he was talking to me, and I obviously just wasn't really reacting. And I imagine he's used to having women in that office that really were desperate to be given this news. And so he kind of said, "It's good news." And then I was like, "Oh God, thank you." But to me, again, it was like, exactly like you described, that feeling of like, oh, and just knowing, I'm not going to do that. I don't want that. And then guilt for the friends that would have really loved to be given that news, you know, friends that did want children and for different reasons have been struggling. There was also, before that realisation of I don't want that, there was also that moment of going, oh, that means I'm a real woman. It was amazing. And for a second I kind of, you know, to be told I was fertile, and then I kind of imagined, oh, maybe I could be this whole other person that did have children. And in my head at the time, that was still very much the desired idea that that's what a woman should be. And I was like, maybe I could. But then just so quickly it was like, no, that's not you. For better or worse or whatever, it just isn't you. But there was a little moment of like, oh, maybe I could still be the right kind of woman.
Yeah.
You know, I could still.
Yeah.
And now I kind of, because that was 7-8 years ago. So now I look back on that and, yeah, so interesting that I had this idea that for a second I could be a proper woman because I was fertile. And I guess as a 47-year-old now, there has been no moment of regret about not having children, because this is something that's, I think, kind of, we're always warned, you'll regret it. You know, who's going to look after you when you're older? You'll never know a love like it. And I am sure I actually believe that there must be an absolutely unique love that happens between you and your child. And I have no regrets about that not being my life. Absolutely no regrets. And I have experienced all kinds of love and richness in my life that hasn't come in that form, it's come in lots of other forms. And I don't feel like I have to excuse it, or by making myself wrong for not wanting to be a mother, because I did used to do that. I thought, you don't want to be a mother because you're immature and you're selfish. You haven't grown up yet. And I don't see it in those terms anymore. I don't even know if there's lots of reasons why I didn't want it. It's just something I didn't want.
Yeah, we don't need to find. It's one of the. We don't feel the need to justify turning down a lasagna when someone's made it.
I just don't want a lasagna.
We do actually want someone to make it. But on the menu, if we're choosing between lasagna and something else, we don't feel the need to justify it. It's just that that's what we want in that moment or don't want.
Exactly.
Whereas with this, it's like not drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Where everybody immediately assumes there's some big backstory.
Yeah.
Oh, why?
Yeah.
Why did you give up alcohol?
Yeah.
Did you have a problem?
Yeah. And
it's the same sort of thing. I mean, it just shows us what the societal conditioning is actually doing of us. I mean, so much in your book is about that's the deal.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would say it's the deal with therapy in pretty much every sense. It's about learning to disentangle ourselves and our true identities and authentic needs and values from the ones that we are programmed to believe to be correct.